one of my Christmas stories. And it's about my son. About 9 years ago, my son was turning 5. And at the time, my husband and myself and my son were living in the UK. And we loved living in the UK. We lived right on the coast, and it was beautiful, and we got to travel quite a bit. We asked our 5-year-old what he really wanted to do. Well, it's December in the UK is cold. And he says to us, I want to meet Santa Claus. And I said, oh, okay, no problem. I'm thinking a trip to London, we'll go to Harrods, something like that, right? Well, I'm walking through the little mall in our little town that we live in. And there's a travel agent over in the corner. And meet Santa. Fly to the North Pole for a 4-day excursion in Finland. Well, I went home that night and I said, honey, I've got the perfect gift for our son. He said, you gotta be kidding, you can do that? And I said, yeah, you apparently can. So the next day we went on down and we sat down with the agent and we found out that indeed you can take a plane right over, it takes about a couple of hours, from London to Finland, Levi, Finland, just inside the boundary of the North Pole. And it's freaking cold. It's freaking cold. It's really cold. And I said, that doesn't matter. We're going to go meet Santa. Well, I tell my son, we're going to go on a trip and we're going to go to the North Pole and we're going to meet Santa for your birthday. And he says, yeah, right. Whatever. He totally doesn't believe us. When we pack our bags, we get all of our warm cuddle duds on, we order our base layer, we get our top layer, we get all of our stuff that we know we need. We pack, we get on the tiniest plane that we've ever been on. There were so many people in this plane that I literally could not put my tray down. There was about this much room between the seat in front of me and me. But they pack everybody they can into this plane. But it was okay. We got there. We get off the plane. They meet us with the bus. We get on the bus. We go to a warehouse. And they say, okay, whatever you brought with us, it's not, what you brought with you is not going to be enough. So they proceed to give us snow gear. So we get helmets, and we get snowsuits, and we get an extra layer, and we get 4 pairs of wool socks, and we get extra gloves, and we get more gloves, and we get all of the stuff that you need to be literally in the North Pole. We get to our hotel, and my son Patrick is still going, yeah, I know it's cold, and it looks great, and there's lots of snow, and I'm having a good time, but we're not really going to meet Santa, right? I said, no, I think we are. I think we're going to get to meet the big guy. We really are. And he said, okay, whatever. So the next day, we get all our gear on. We go have our breakfast. We go. He's so excited. He gets to meet these college students who are all dressed up like elves with their Finnish accents. And they're excited. And they're teaching, we're painting little toys. And we're making, gingerbread cookies. And we're doing all this stuff. And he's looking around. He said, well, it kind of looks like Santa's village. It's kind of... And he looks out the window and there's reindeer out the window. I mean, like real reindeer out there. And he's like, are those reindeer? And I said, yes, they are. Those are reindeer. And one of the elves come up and says, there's Comet. And I can't do a Finnish accent, so I'm sorry about that. But he said, and he says, I can't believe it. And the longer we're there, this 5-year-old's little eyes get wider and wider, and he starts getting so excited, and he can barely contain himself, and he's waiting, and we're asking him, why don't you write your letter to Santa, and you can give it to him when you see him, and he can barely write, and we're trying to get him to think about what he wants, and he's like, I don't know, I can't meet Santa. And he's so excited, and I said, it's okay, you don't have to write the letter. Santa knows. So finally, one of the little elves comes up, and she says, okay, it's your turn, we're going to go. So we go up to this office door, and we knock. He knocks on the door. and you hear this creaking chair, and he opens the door, and you don't see him at first, but you see inside this office with windows that look out into the paddock where the reindeer are, and it's getting to be afternoon, so, December in Finland is almost dark by, 3 o'clock. But the sky is blue, the sky is low, and everything's blue and beautiful, and there's a roaring fire, and there's a roll-top desk with letters stacked up, and there's a big red chair, and you see this head come up around the door, and he said, "Is this Patrick?" At this point, Mommy's crying. Mommy's in tears, because her son has just met God, as far as he's concerned. And he says, "Patrick, come sit down." And he sits on a little stool in front of his red chair, and Santa goes and sits in his big red chair, and he said, "Do you have a letter for me?" And he holds out the piece of paper that has absolutely nothing written on it, and he looks at it, and he goes, "I see." And he said, "Is there something you would like to tell me? Do you want to tell me what you would like for Christmas?" And he leans up and he whispers something in his ear, and he said, "I see." And he said, "Patrick, have you really been a good boy this year?" And he goes, "I've tried." And he looks at me, and Santa looks at me, and he looks at his father, and I went, "Yeah, it's true." And he said, "Well, that's all we can ask, that you do your best." And my son is just in awe. His eyes are so big, he can barely contain himself. He's shaking just a little bit. And this Santa, who, by the way, speaks about 15 languages, is about 6'7", big guy, wearing red lederhosen and boots and a big sweater and a beard down to here and the whole spiel, looks at him and he says, "Patrick, all we can do is our very best. Will you promise me to always do your very best?" And Patrick, with his big eyes, says, "Yes, I will do it." And he takes him, and Santa puts his arm around his shoulder, and he holds him tight, and he wraps his little arms around his neck, and he hugs him as tight as he can. And then he stands up, and he takes Patrick by the hand, and he takes him out the back door, and he said, "Mom, Dad, you can come." And we go out to the paddock where the reindeer are, and Santa waves his hand, and he's just standing there in his little snowsuit, freezing to death, staring after Santa. And I look at him, and he's smiling, and his eyes are shining, and I think, I am the best mom on the planet. And he turns around, and he looks at us, and he doesn't say a word, but he can't stop smiling. And we play with the reindeer, and we feed the reindeer, and we find out all about the reindeer. We take these sleds, and we are on the little wooden sleds going down the different little hills they have, and we're having a great time. And we go back to the hotel, and we put him to sleep, and I swear to God he fell asleep with a smile on his face. The next morning, we went and we saw more reindeer, and we took a 3-hour reindeer sleigh ride, jingle bells, the whole bit, and he fell asleep in my arms through Finland, and we had a great time. Later that afternoon, we sat down with my husband behind me in front of him, and Patrick in front of me. We sat down on a reindeer skin on a sled, a dog sled, with a very burly, incredible, amazing woman named Hilda, who controlled those dogs and took us for a ride all the way through the forest in Finland. And my son screamed the whole way. It was so fast and so cold and so amazing. But when he got off, finally got off the thing, and we got back on the bus to go back to the hotel, he said, "I'm so cold, but that was amazing." When we came back to the United States, we came back to Huntsville, not long after that summer after that Christmas, and we were actually at Bridge Street, and it was still pretty new then. And a friend of mine, who's an actor, who, I hope there aren't any kids from him. Well, he plays Santa out there. He's really amazing. Have you ever seen him? The Bridge Street Santa? Yeah, he's awesome. Isn't he amazing? Well, that's a friend of mine. Well, he thinks he's going to be really cool, and he comes up and he's talking to Pat, he's talking to him, and he's like, "I'm Santa," and he's talking about what he wants for Christmas, and my son's standing there like this. So my friend finishes his Santa spiel, and my son leans in, puts his hand on his shoulder, and went, "It's all right. I know the real Santa. We're tight." But he appreciates you helping him out. So that's my Santa story. I think that the point I'm trying to say is that we've all got a little Patty in us. We all want to believe in Santa. He's 14 now, and we still watch Santa. We still believe in that spirit. And my hope is that tonight you guys will just reach in a little bit. I know maybe there's not even stuff you want over there, but just give a little bit so we can help kids that maybe don't get the chances we all do. I know everybody can't go to Finland to meet Santa. We would never have had that opportunity, but we did, and we took it. It's my hope that maybe a little bit of us can meet Santa. So tonight I hope that you can help with that. Thank you so much.
My grandmother has a hard time hearing. In fact, to be honest, she's probably legally deaf. So whenever I talk to her, I have to talk really, really loud, like this, so she can hear me, to the point where it almost feels disrespectful. If I ask her how she's doing, she says, "Honey, your mom isn't here." If I ask her, does she want something to eat, she says the dog is outside playing. Clearly there's a communication gap. But every gray hair on her 92-year-old head tells me a story of hard work, loyalty, and love for her family and for me. And because I live in a world where I don't have a lot of role models, she's definitely one. My grandma's memory is fading, and she's forgetting a lot of basic things, like eggshells don't go into scrambled eggs, or pound cake, or chocolate cake, or eggshells don't go in most cakes in general. And when she wants my attention, she'll say, hey, come here, Billy, Stan, Jason, Shaq, Carmelo, Kobe, Snoop, come here. And that's fine, Nana. I guess I'll eat your eggs with the eggshells in them. There's probably something nutritional in it. And if you can't hear this poem, I will personally read it to you really, really loud. Signed with love. Billy, Stan, Jason, Shaq, Carmelo, Kobe, Snoop, Marcus. Thank you.
I'm Mr. Snow. I'm Mr. Icicle. I'm Mr. Tenderloin. Friends call me Snow Miser. Whatever I touch turns to snow in my clutch. I'm too much. I'm Mr. Green Christmas, I'm Mr. Sun. I'm Mr. Heat Blister, I'm Mr. 101. They call me Heat Miser, whatever I touch starts to melt in my clutch. I'm too much. He's Mr. White Christmas, he's Mr. Snow. He's Mr. Icicle, he's Mr. Timberlow. Friends call me Snow Miser, whatever I touch turns to snow in my clutch. He's too much. Oh, thank you. I never wanna know a day that's over 40 degrees. I'd rather have a 30, 20, 10, 5 than let them freeze. He's Mr. Green Christmas, he's Mr. Sun. He's Mr. Heat Blister, he's Mr. 101. They call me Heat Miser, whatever I touch starts to melt in my clutch. He's too much. I never wanna know a day that's under 60 degrees. I'd rather have it 80, 90, 100 degrees. He's Mr. White Christmas, he's Mr. Sun. He's Mr. Icicle, he's Mr. 101. Friends call me Snow Miser, whatever I touch starts to snow in my clutch. He's too much, too much.
'Twas the night before Christmas aboard a black shark, with a creature, not a creature was stirring, not even a shark. The stockings were stuck to the bowsprit with tar, in hopes that Sir Peggotty soon would be there. The pirates were snoring like pigs in their beds, while visions of treasure chests danced in their heads. And I, with my spyglass and scruffy old dog, stood watch in the crow's nest for ships in the fog. When out of the mist there rose such a racket, I slid down the mast with my sword to attack it. Away to the poop deck I ran very fast. I threw off the anchor and shouted, "Avast!" Straight up from the sea in the foamy white spray flew 8 giant seahorses pulling a sleigh, a mean-looking driver, a host in one leg. Well, shiver me timbers, it must be Sir Peg. More sluggish than flounders, his coursers they came, and he whistled and snarled and called them by name. Now Salty, now Scurvy, now Sinbad and Molly. On Cutthroat, on Cross-eyed, on Roger and Jolly. To the top of the sail, to the tip of the mast, now dash away, dash away, dash away fast. And then with a cry and a crack of his whip came down his sleigh on the deck of our ship, a jolly old sea dog, enormously fat, and so was the parrot that perched on his hat. He was dressed all in black from his head to his heels, and his clothes were all covered with seaweed nails. His eyes, how it twinkled, his dreadlocks, how twinny. His scars were like crossbones, his gold tooth was shiny. His mouth was turned up with a nasty old look, the silver gleamed sharp on the point of his hook. A scary white skull he had hung on his ear, soon gave me to know I had nothing to fear. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his sack and stuffed all the stockings with coins and hardtack. The black sark was soon filled with holiday cheer and loaded with gifts for each good buccaneer. Anchors and hornpipes and cackle fruit eggs, pearls and red sashes for Bonnie and Meg, a cauldron for a cook filled with pieces of shank, and just for the captain, a shiny new plank. But oh, my heart broke and tears in my eyes. I said to myself, blimey, where is me surprise? But he hopped in his sleigh, and to his team gave a roar. It's time to return to the briny deep floor. Then just when I thought it was me worst Christmas day, a parchment of paper flew down off the sleigh. And it was the best present I ever got, a map to a treasure, Xmas marks the spot. I laughed and I danced and I shouted with glee as up went his sleigh and then down to the sea. But I heard him exclaim ere he splashed near a star, "Merry Christmas, me buckos, and a Happy New Year."